First story. My wife called my son a pig and demanded that I punish him after he ate some of the food her daughter made. I refused, so she banned my son from eating any food in my house. I 43M have been married to my wife as 39F for 5 months, though we lived together nearly a year before tying the knot. We each came into the marriage with one kid, my son Dylan 17M, and her daughter Jasmine 16F. Jasmine used to split time between our place and her dad's, but since he's been working overseas for the past couple of months, she's been with us full time. Dylan lives primarily with my ex and comes to stay with me on weekends, or when he has downtime between sports and school. The kids aren't exactly close, they go to different schools and don't have overlapping social circles, but they're civil, mostly. There's some light teasing here and there, and the occasional teenage attitude flare-up, but nothing major. If I had to describe it, I'd say they tolerate each other without much warmth. Jasmine and his love to cook. That's sort of their thing. They spend whole afternoons in the kitchen, working on elaborate dishes from S's family's culture. Jasmine especially has gotten very into it. She treats it like a craft or a tradition she's proud of. Honestly, some of the meals they put together are amazing. Dylan and I aren't familiar with half the ingredients, but we're always up to try whatever's on the table. That said, we've had a few small run-ins about food before. About 3 months ago, Dylan grabbed a container of leftovers that Jasmine had made the night before, apparently something she wanted to tweak and reserve the next day. She was annoyed and told S, who then pulled me aside and asked me to make sure Dylan doesn't touch things without asking. I said fine, but also pointed out there was no note or label on the container, and it was just sitting in the fridge like any other leftover. I had a quick talk with Dylan afterwards and told him just to ask first if he saw something that looked fancy or was clearly something they'd been prepping. He was cool with it. Since then, we haven't had issues until this week. So, a few days ago, Dylan dropped by unexpectedly to grab some gym gear he left behind. It wasn't his usual weekend visit, more of a quick stop between classes and practice. Nobody was home at the time, so he let himself in. He called me, said there was this amazing smell coming from the kitchen, and asked if he could try whatever was cooking. I said sure, he's a growing athlete and always hungry, and besides, Jasmine and S regularly cook big portions. I told him to leave enough for the rest of us and not go overboard. He sent me a photo afterwards of how much stew was left. It looked like at least half the pot was still full. I didn't think anything of it. It's not unusual for them to make a lot of food. They often batch cook or prep meals for multiple days. I figured they'd have enough for dinner, and that would be that. But about an hour later, I got a call from Jasmine. She sounded pissed, but was trying to keep it polite. She asked if I had eaten the stew she made. I told her no, but that Dylan had stopped by and asked if he could have some, and I told him it was fine. She went quiet for a second, then said she had invited 6 of her friends over to try that exact dish. Apparently, it was her grandmother's recipe, and she'd been planning this tasting night all week. She said the stew was meant to serve 9 people, and now nearly half of it was gone. I apologized and offered to pay for pizza or takeout so her friends could still have a good time. I wasn't trying to brush it off, I genuinely felt bad. She didn't get to show off her cooking like she wanted. She accepted the pizza idea, but her tone was cold. Later that evening, I also had Dylan call her and apologize directly, which he did. She said she accepted, but ever since, she's been distant. That night, S sat me down and said we needed to have a real talk about boundaries. She said Dylan shouldn't be allowed to just raid the kitchen whenever he drops by, especially since Jasmine puts a lot of time and effort into the meals she makes. I told her I understood the frustration, but I still thought this whole thing was blown out of proportion. Dylan didn't maliciously eat something he wasn't supposed to. There was no sign, no message, and no one home to ask. He saw a pot on the stove and asked me if it was okay, and I gave the green light. I said if Jasmine or S ever has something planned or reserved, they can put a note or message me to flag it. Otherwise, food in the kitchen should be fair game, especially for a kid who lives here part-time and already feels like he has to tread lightly. That didn't go over well. S got defensive. She said I was making excuses for Dylan and disrespecting the home she's trying to build. She also brought up that I always default to Dylan's side when there's any disagreement, and that it sends the message that Jasmine's efforts or feelings matter less because she's not my biological kid. I told her that wasn't fair. This isn't about taking sides. It's about a misunderstanding over a pot of food and how far we're willing to take the fallout. I said Dylan's not a freeloader. He's not trying to hurt Jasmine. He's just hungry, and I'm not going to come down on him like he committed a felony for eating stew. At that point, she dropped the hammer. She wanted me to punish Dylan. She listed options. Take away his next allowance, have him do chores the next time he visits, and ban him from eating anything Jasmine makes for the next month. She said he ruined something Jasmine had worked on all day, and that he should be held accountable. I told her no, point blank. That didn't sit well. She accused me of coddling him. Said this wasn't just about Stu anymore. It was about patterns. That I don't correct Dylan. That I let him do what he wants in this house, while Jasmine is expected to be thoughtful, plan ahead, and follow rules. I reminded her that Dylan isn't here every day. He doesn't live in this house full time. When he's here, he follows basic expectations. And when he makes a mistake, which, in this case, I don't think he did, he owns up to it. Argued that he should have known better than to eat that much. I asked how he was supposed to know it was reserved when nobody was home, and there was no note. If it was that important, someone could have said something or texted me. She snapped and said, "Maybe you should teach your son not to eat like a pig every time he walks through the door." That line ended the conversation. I told her flat out that I won't punish Dylan for eating food in the house I pay for, in the kitchen that's supposed to belong to everyone here, not just her and Jasmine. If they want to reserve something for a specific event, they can label it. I'm happy to talk to Dylan about portion control or communication, but I'm not going to ground him or shame him. After that, the vibe in the house changed. Jasmine barely looked at me or Dylan that weekend. She stayed in her room most of the time, only coming out to make her own meals and take them back in. I started whispering with her, a lot nothing I could hear, but I know what it was about. Every time Dylan came into the kitchen, I could feel the tension. Started putting notes on pots and containers. Do not touch. For dinner only. Ask first. Fine. No problem with that. But it wasn't just about labeling anymore, it was performative. Then came the next visit. Dylan showed up on Saturday. He dropped his bag in the hallway and asked me if it was okay to get food. I said, "Yeah, it's fine, just check if anything's labeled. Otherwise, help yourself." He nodded and went in. 5 minutes later, came in and saw him getting a plate of the rice and meat she and Jasmine had cooked. Nothing was marked. She immediately said, "That's not for you." He froze. I told her, "It's not labeled, and I already told him it was fine." She started arguing in front of him about how she was sick of this happening, how he eats without any thought for others, and how it's basic respect to ask every single time. Dylan didn't say anything. He put the plate down and went back to the guest room. Didn't touch it. Later, he texted me from the room. He said he didn't want to eat anything unless he brought his own food. He said he felt watched and didn't want to set off a bomb just for being hungry. That pissed me off. I told him no, he doesn't need to do that. He's not a guest. He's my kid. He's allowed to eat. The next morning, tried again to talk to me about enforcing house rules. She had printed out a list of kitchen expectations, stuff like, always ask before eating anything not purchased yourself, and family dishes are not to be touched without direct approval from the cook. It wasn't a discussion. She wanted me to hand it to Dylan and have him sign it. I refused. I told her if this is where we're going, contracts and restrictions over basic food, then we have a bigger problem. She said if I won't support her and Jasmine, then I'm choosing Dylan over them. I said I'm not choosing anyone. I'm refusing to let my son feel like an outsider in the only place he's supposed to call home with me. She left the room after that. Since then, it's been quiet. Awkward. Jasmine doesn't join dinners when Dylan is here, keeps making comments like, some people just take whatever they want. Dylan has stopped coming over on weekdays entirely. He only comes for scheduled weekends now, and even then he packs snacks or eats out instead of going near the stove. I've told him again and again he's allowed to eat, that I support him, and that he didn't do anything wrong. But he just shrugs it off, says it's not worth it. I don't know where to go from here. I've kept my position firm. I won't punish Dylan for something that wasn't his fault. I won't create rules meant to shame him. I won't treat him like a visitor in his own father's house. I've offered a reasonable compromise. Label special food and text me when things are off limits. But I won't go along with punishments or guilt tripping. It thinks I'm showing favoritism. Jasmine says I don't take her cooking seriously. I think they're overreacting. I've apologized. Dylan apologized. But apparently that's not enough, unless he's also punished and excluded from certain meals. So, Reddit, Ada. Comments. Comment 1. YTA. But not for refusing to punish your kid. That's where you're spinning this too hard. No one's saying Dylan should be grounded for life for eating stew. But he didn't have a bowl. The kid ate half the damn pot that was made for a dinner with guests. You're acting like they're staging a coup over leftovers, when in reality, your son basically torpedoed a dinner party. Also, stop with the he's being excluded from his father's kitchen martyr act. No one's locking the fridge. They're asking for basic awareness. If someone's clearly cooking a big dish and you don't know what it's for, you don't dive in. It doesn't matter who paid for the groceries if Jasmine's doing the cooking. She gets to set some terms. That's just respect. You don't need to punish Dylan. But you do need to stop acting like he's above being asked to use his brain for 5 seconds before eating whatever's on the stove. Comment 2. NTA. Jesus. This entire house needs to take a breath. Your son ate some stew. Was it a lot? Sure. Was it malicious? No. And they've been acting like he stole someone's family heirloom. The fact that your wife and stepdaughter are labeling pots and whispering like he's a criminal is unhinged. Jasmine, 16. Not a professional chef with reservations booked months in advance. She's allowed to be upset. But this is some dramatic overkill. Your wife calling your son a pig behind his back. Red flag. And yeah, I'm gonna say it, if you had gone along with punishing Dylan, you'd be showing him that his place in your house is conditional. That's how resentment builds. You offered a compromise. You apologized. He apologized. Your wife and stepdaughter need to chill the F down. Good on you for not throwing your kid under the bus to keep the peace. Update. So, things finally exploded. I wish I could say it was unexpected, but if I'm honest, it was coming for a while. I didn't realize just how much pressure had been building under the surface for Dylan, for me, for this whole damn family arrangement. This past weekend, my wife had some family friends over. Jasmine made another one of her big dishes, something with slow-cooked lamb and spices that she'd apparently been prepping since morning. The guests showed up around 6 p.m., and wanted us all at the table to show off her and Jasmine's cultural spread. Dylan came in from practice. I kind of forcefully told him to get food, and headed toward the kitchen to plate up. He didn't see any labels or reserved signs, and he didn't ask, and yeah, I told him ahead of time he didn't have to. This is his F******ing home. If I tell him he can eat here, then he can eat. He grabbed a portion and sat down like any normal kid. One of S's friends asked, "Oh, is that for everyone?" Before they had even started eating, and S said, "Well, not if Dylan eats half of it again." Loud enough for the entire room to hear. Dylan froze mid-bite. Looked around. Everyone got quiet. And then he put his fork down and said, "You know what? F this. I'm so sick of being treated like a problem every time I come here. I asked to eat. It's a problem. I don't ask. It's a problem. What do you want from me? An apology for being hungry." No one said anything. He stood up, dumped his plate in the sink, grabbed his bag, and left. Didn't even look at me. S had the audacity to say, "That was disrespectful in front of guests." I told her, flatly, "What's disrespectful is treating my son like a thief in his own effing house." Later that night, she came to me and said again that Dylan needs consequences. She went on and on, said he embarrassed her, made her look bad in front of people, and acted like a brat. And then she said, "Since you refuse to parent him, I will." That's when I lost it. I don't yell often, but I shouted this time. I told her, "You are not his parent. You don't get to discipline my son because you're mad he ate food without checking your guest list. He didn't steal from you. He didn't insult you. He didn't damage anything. He ate. In his home. And yeah, if he wants to walk in and eat whatever's on the stove without running a effing approval process, he can. That's what a home is. If there's something he shouldn't eat, you tell me, or you label it, or you set it aside. You don't ambush him at dinner and humiliate him in front of strangers." She started crying. Said I didn't support her, and was siding with him over family. And I snapped again. He is my family. Just because you married me 5 months ago doesn't give you more authority over this house than the kid I raised. She stormed off. Jasmine hasn't spoken to me since. She walks around silent and cold, like I betrayed her. And now Dylan's gone. After that night, he texted me one line. "I'm going to stay with Mum from now on. Not worth it anymore." I tried to call. He didn't pick up. I messaged his mum to check in, and she said he came home really upset and didn't want to talk about it. I feel like I failed him. Not for defending him, I'll never regret that, but for letting it get to this point. I should have stepped in harder, sooner. I should have drawn the line the first time S and Jasmine tried to control the kitchen like it was their private domain. I thought I was balancing things, being neutral. I thought if I kept the peace, eventually they'd warm up to Dylan. That we could blend into something real. But it was always conditional. Their version of family had rules Dylan was never going to meet. And apparently, being hungry was one of them. And for the people who told me in the last post that Dylan ate half the stew, like some wild animal, congratulations. I hope you're happy. He didn't need a bowl of stew. He needed a place where he didn't feel like he had to apologize for existing. That place was supposed to be here. He didn't get that. And now he's gone. To be clear, I still don't believe he did anything wrong. I still won't say he needed to ask permission to eat. If I cook something, and it's not for sharing, I say so. If someone else cooks and doesn't tell anyone it's reserved, that's on them. You can't spring rules on a kid after the fact, and then punish him for not following them. This was never about stew. It was about power. A weird obsession with discipline. S and Jasmine couldn't handle Dylan, not groveling to their kitchen hierarchy. And instead of talking like adults, they turned it into a war of principles. And for what? A pot of food. Now I sit in a house that's quiet, cold, and full of food no one touches. I haven't heard from Dylan since that text. I don't know how long he plans to stay away. I'm angry. I'm hurt. And honestly, I'm furious at my wife. At Jasmine's. At everyone who made my son feel like a effing burden for being hungry. You want to know my stance? He doesn't need to ask for food here. Not now. Not ever. This is his house. That was his seat at the table. And I'll keep it empty until he comes back on his terms. Because he damn sure won't be begging anyone for permission to eat again. Not while I'm his father. Comments. Comment 1. This whole situation's heartbreaking because it was so avoidable. Your wife and stepdaughter escalated something small into a war. And now your kid's gone. And for what? A effing pot of stew. I get Jasmine worked hard on it. I respect cultural pride. But pride doesn't give you a pass to humiliate someone, especially a teenage boy who's clearly not malicious and has been made to feel like a criminal for eating. That's it. OP, I'm going to be real with you. This didn't come out of nowhere. The ways felt emboldened to start setting punishments for your son tells me she's been building resentment for a while. And you probably missed a lot of red flags. You were trying to keep the peace, but in doing that, you gave them space to rewrite the rules in your own house. That's not neutrality, that's neglecting to protect your kid until it was too late. I respect that you finally stood up for him. But now you're going to have to fix it. And it's going to take real work to get your son to believe this is still his home. Food was just the trigger he left because he doesn't feel safe or wanted there. Start there. Comment 2. This SHT pisses me off. I was that kid once coming over on weekends, knowing damn well the stepfamily was just tolerating me, not including me. Dylan didn't overeat. He didn't disrespect anyone. He made the mistake of thinking he was actually welcome in a house that was supposed to be half his. And Jasmine needs a effing reality check. You want to play chef? Great. But if your food's not labeled, not covered, and just sitting on the stove, it's fair game. Especially when it's your stepbrother, not some random neighbor. You don't punish people with food. That's petty as hell. Your wife's worst, though. Calling your kid a pig, demanding punishments, crying when you finally said no. That's manipulative as F. She made this about power, and the moment you wouldn't bend, she pulled the "you're not supporting me" card. Keep that seat open like you said, OP. But be ready to fight for your son, because S and Jasmine already showed you who they are when it comes down to it. Comment 3. This is a classic example of everyone seeing their own version of family, and none of them lining up. Jasmine thought Dylan should treat her cooking like sacred ground. Dylan just wanted to eat without drama. Your wife thinks parenting means enforcing respect through rules. You think parenting means creating a space where your son doesn't have to ask to exist. And now everyone feels betrayed. Honestly, Jasmine's anger I can understand. Teenagers feel disrespected very easily, especially when they put effort into something and don't feel seen. But your wife, her actions scream entitlement. She took your refusal to punish Dylan as an attack on her authority, not a defense of your son. And instead of adjusting, she doubled down and tried to take over his discipline, which is not her effing role. That was the line. Dylan was never the real problem. He was just the one who paid the price for everyone else's ego. I hope you can rebuild that trust with him. And I hope your wife realizes she burned a bridge that wasn't hers to set on fire. Update. It's been a few months since my last post. A lot has changed, more than I ever imagined when this started over a pot of stew. People kept saying, this isn't about the stew, and they were right. It was about how my wife and her daughter treated my son, and what I was willing to tolerate. After Dylan left that night, I went a couple of weeks trying to reach him. He'd respond to texts, but short, cold replies. He didn't come over on weekends. He stayed with his mom. When I did get him on the phone, he said he wasn't angry at me, but that he couldn't do it anymore. He said walking into my house felt like walking into a courtroom where he was already guilty. That gutted me. I'd promised myself I'd never let him feel unwelcome in my home, and I had failed. At the same time, my wife and Jasmine did a complete 180. The whispering stopped. Started making me coffee every morning. Jasmine made small talk when I got home from work. They cooked, left out plates for me, even told me to invite Dylan again. It was obvious they'd realized they'd gone too far. But when I asked directly if she was willing to apologize to Dylan for calling him names, she deflected. Said, he embarrassed me, and he needs to understand house rules first. Jasmine said she wouldn't apologize for being upset about her stew. I told plainly, if you can't acknowledge what you did to my son, this marriage won't last. She cried. Said I was threatening her. Said I was choosing Dylan over her. I told her no, I'm choosing decency over whatever this is. For the first time, I used the word divorce out loud. It was like I'd set off a bomb in the kitchen. She went pale. She started promising change. Said she'd talk to Dylan herself. Said we could all go to therapy. For a moment, I believed maybe we could repair it. But Dylan wasn't interested. He texted me after she reached out and said, Dad, I'm not going back there for her to lecture me. I'm done. And that was that. The change from and Jasmine lasted 2 more weeks. Then the same behavior crept back, little digs about Dylan, not respecting their home, complaints about me, letting him get away with it, as though eating food in his own house was a crime. That was the point I decided I was done. I sat down and told her straight, I'm filing for divorce. This marriage isn't working. I won't live in a home where my son is treated like an outsider. She cried again, said I was ruining everything, that Jasmine was like a daughter to me, and I was abandoning her. I told her, Jasmine was welcome in my home. Dylan was too. You're the ones who made it conditional. The divorce wasn't easy. We'd only been married 6 months, but because we'd already merged finances, I lost more than I expected. I kept the house because my name was on it before the marriage, but I paid her a settlement to cover some of the improvements we'd done since she moved in. She took some furniture and appliances we'd bought together. We had to sell my newer car because it was in both our names. The legal fees were a punch in the gut, but worth it. I went completely no contact with Jasmine. She sent me one text the day they moved out. I hope you and Dylan are happy now. That's all. A few months later, she mailed a handwritten letter. It wasn't an apology exactly, more like a diary entry. She wrote that she felt overshadowed since Dylan came around, that she wanted something for herself. She said she didn't realize how much she'd hurt Dylan until after he left, but she still didn't take full responsibility. I showed the letter to Dylan. He read it, didn't say much, then folded it up and gave it back. Not ready to deal with that, he said. I didn't push. As for she's tried reaching out twice since the divorce was finalized. The first was a long email about how she's learning to see things differently and wants closure. The second was a short message asking if I'd tell Dylan she never meant to hurt him. I didn't respond to either. I'm done mediating between them and my son. Dylan started visiting more about a month after and Jasmine left. At first, he was wary, like he was waiting for another trap. He brought his own groceries the first week and wouldn't touch anything I cooked. I had to sit him down and say, this is your house. This is your kitchen. You don't have to ask. You never did. It took a while, but he started to relax. We began cooking together, simple stuff at first, then bigger meals. I even asked him if he wanted to try making one of Jasmine's old recipes, just to reclaim it. He laughed and said, sure, but we're eating the whole pot this time. The house feels different now, quiet, but in a good way. There's no tension over the kitchen. No labels on pots. No accusations. Dylan leaves his stuff around without feeling like a guest. He's smiling more. He talks to me. We're rebuilding. Slowly. I lost money in the divorce. I lost furniture. I lost time. But none of that compares to almost losing my son. That was the real cost of trying to keep the peace instead of standing firm from the beginning. I can live with the rest. I know some people will still say Dylan was wrong to eat half the stew. Fine. But I'll say this until the day I die. Eating food in your own home is not a crime. A family that makes you ask permission to eat, or shames you for being hungry, isn't a family. Now it's just me and Dylan. We keep a stocked kitchen. If something's off limits, we say so. If not, it's fair game. He doesn't need to ask. He doesn't need to tiptoe. This is his home again. This is how it should have been all along. Second story. My repentant, believing aunt, who forced my parents to send me to the conversion camp to cleanse my sins, has now given me 40K, confessed about her affair in the church, and quit her job to get repentant by the Lord in 2 days. Now her husband has filed for divorce, and I would love to spend the money from my college. But is it moral of me? For those of you who are unaware, there's a faction of Christians out there who believe that the rapture is going to happen on Tuesday. My aunt is one of those people, and she has been going around, telling everybody how people will float into the sky and whatnot. I'm queer and agnostic, and while I was raised loosely Christian, I haven't identified with a religion since I was in 5th grade. Most of my family on my mother's side, except for my aunt, are Christian, but not particularly devout, and certainly not as much as her, nor do they believe in the rapture. She apparently became very, very involved in the religion at some point in college. Basically my entire life, I have been ridiculed by my aunt for being queer, since I came out at a young age. Most of my family were very kind, accepting and understanding, except for her. I spent every family gathering getting basically cornered, bullied, harassed, called slurs, and preached at by a grown woman for my sexuality. It got to the point that my mother had to have several sit-down conversations with her to essentially tell her to quit harassing me. This endured for a long time, and while my parents would always tell her to knock it off, she never would. But one day my mother seriously put her foot down against her. She made it clear that my family accepted me, and if she wouldn't tone it down, she would no longer be welcome in our home or around me. During this conversation, my aunt allegedly called my family bad Christians for not sending me to conversion therapy and said that they would regret not making me repent once the rapture was upon us. But that was a few years ago, and ever since then I mostly just get sideways glances from her at family events and the occasional Bible verse text from her, which I can manage. I am now an adult, 19 and in college, and I was recently contacted by my aunt to meet up with her for lunch. I assumed that maybe she had a change of heart and wanted to apologize for how she treated me. This was not the case. When we met up, she essentially went on a long-winded spiel about how she pities me and feels so sorry that I never repented and how I, and the rest of my family, will be left behind because we never fully gave our lives to Christ. At the end of her monologue, she pulled out a stack of cash, all in $100 bills, and handed it to me, telling me that she wanted to give away her savings to those less fortunate, since she wouldn't be needing it when the rapture comes and delivers her to the Lord. I tried to talk her out of it, but she insisted and practically forced the money into my hands before abruptly walking away. I counted it when I got home, and it was slightly over 40K in cash. Here's where I think I would be the ad. When the rapture inevitably doesn't happen, I have no plans of giving the money back to her. I know she's been going through some kind of long, enduring religious psychosis, but I could honestly really use this type of cash to put me through college and handle other expenses, and she gave it to me willingly. WBeta, if I didn't give her back the money when the rapture didn't happen. Edit. My parents are now aware of this because she apparently decided to try to gift my younger sister a car, her relatively new, nice Ford Bronco. I told my parents about the money, and my mother, who is also Christian, told me that it would be the most ethical thing to do if I gave it back to her, and that I need to be empathetic to the struggles she's clearly going through. My dad, however, thinks that if she was stupid enough to give away her life savings on a whim, the money is better off going towards my education anyways. I'm still torn. Consensus. Keep the money, pretend to be raptured, and start a new life. Update. Just wanted to clarify a few things. I am a bisexual woman. A few people here thought I was a man. I have no idea why she would want to give me, of all people, the money. I'm just as confused as the rest of you. From what I grasped, it seemed as though it was some final act of kindness towards somebody she takes great pity on. I don't know. LMFAO. As a few of you said, I should probably leave some kind of trail to prove this was freely given, and I didn't steal from her, so there are no legal repercussions should I choose to keep it. I'm still not sold on any course of action yet, especially because it's not Wednesday yet. So I sent her an email thanking her for the gift and reiterating that I did not originally want it. But it was just oh so very gracious of her to give money to a poor sinner like me. I don't want to take advantage of the mentally ill, but the selfish part of me sees this as reparations for all the torment I endured when I was younger. I've heard a few people say to invest the money instead of immediately putting it towards college, and if I keep it, that will definitely be considered. I don't expect to update again until the rapture has passed, but I will update once that rolls around. Mini edit. Doing my own research on the current rapture craze going on. They think the rapture will happen either Tuesday 23rd or Wednesday 24th. so I will update on Thursday. Update. Hi all, it's Thursday, so as promised, here's the update everyone wanted, and I will make it brief. No, my aunt did not get raptured. No, I will not be keeping the money, which I know will upset some of you. No, my sister did not get to keep the car, as I know some people were wondering. Essentially, as a lot of you predicted, once the rapture didn't happen, my aunt kept moving the goalpost. It went from happening on Tuesday to happening Wednesday, because it's still Tuesday for some parts of the world, to happening sometime this month. I decided not to keep the money, and it's not for any of the reasons I initially thought it would be. Trying to give me money and giving my sister a car were not the only things that she did, because she thought the rapture was coming. She quit her job as well, and I found out just this morning, she also allegedly confessed to her husband that she was having an affair with her co-worker/fellow churchgoer. She works in admin for a megachurch in our area. I think the reason she was doing all of this was to get right with God before the rapture, buy her way into heaven, and have no secrets lying on her chest. I don't know, I can't pretend to understand the logic of somebody that's a rapture believer. And since, the rapture did not happen, her husband wants to file for divorce. I'm not particularly worried about her job. Working for the church and all, I'm pretty convinced they will take her back without a fuss because of how enshrined she was in the community. But 1. I read a lot of your comments, and I don't want to prove her right about how wicked queer people and agnostic atheists are by keeping it, and 2. She will definitely need it for her upcoming legal fees. I'm unsure if this is her entire life savings, but regardless, after letting my emotions cool a bit, I know I wouldn't feel right to keep it. Regardless, my mom approved of my decision. My dad was a bit disappointed, but mostly because he was excited to potentially not have to spend any more money on me for college LMAO. Oh, and she has not explicitly asked for it back yet. I imagine it's because everything that's gone on has her feeling defeated or just generally in a low place. But even if she doesn't, I plan on giving it back to her when I can. I'm a full-time student with a part-time job. I don't have a whole lot of free time, but I'll find a way to get it to her. Yeah, sorry this isn't the update. I know a lot of people want it. If anyone says they want to hear about the conversation when I give her the money, I'll make that update. But if not, this will likely be the last time I update this post. Thank you, everybody, for all your advice. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.